Book Snapshot.
Welcome back to Book Snapshot. I'm your host, and today we're diving into one of the most transformative personal finance books ever written, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you've ever wondered why some people become wealthy while others struggle financially despite earning good incomes, this book has the answers. Published in 1997, it's sold over 40 million copies worldwide and has fundamentally changed how millions of people think about money. In the next 10 minutes, we're going to uncover the core principles that separate the rich from everyone else. And trust me, it's not what you think. So stick around, because what you learn today could completely transform your financial future. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our book snapshots. Your future self will thank you. Let's get started. Robert Kiyosaki didn't grow up wealthy. In fact, his story begins with two fathers, his biological father, whom he calls Poor Dad, and his best friend's father, whom he calls Rich Dad. Both were successful in their own ways, but they had completely different philosophies about money. And that's where this book's genius lies. Poor Dad was highly educated. He had a PhD, worked as a school superintendent, and earned a good income. But despite his education and steady paycheck, he always struggled financially. He lived paycheck to paycheck, had debt, and never built real wealth. Rich Dad, on the other hand, had no formal education beyond high school. Yet he became incredibly wealthy. He owned businesses, invested in real estate, and built an empire. The difference wasn't education or luck, it was mindset and financial literacy. This contrast is the foundation of everything Kiyosaki teaches in this book. And the first lesson is absolutely critical: the difference between assets and liabilities. Most people don't understand this distinction, and it's costing them millions. So let's break it down. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. It generates income. Real estate that produces rental income is an asset. A business that generates profit is an asset. Stocks that pay dividends are assets. Bonds that pay interest are assets. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket, costs you money. A car is a liability. You pay for insurance, maintenance, gas, and depreciation. Your primary residence is a liability. You pay mortgage, property taxes, maintenance, and utilities. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think their house is an asset. It's not. Your house is a liability. It costs you money every single month. The only way a house becomes an asset is if it generates income, like a rental property. Rich people understand this distinction. They buy assets. Poor people and the middle class buy liabilities and call them assets. That's the fundamental difference. Kiyosaki illustrates this with a simple diagram: the rich dad's income statement versus the poor dad's. Rich dad has income flowing in from multiple sources, businesses, real estate, investments, and his expenses are relatively low. Poor dad has one income source, his salary, and his expenses consume most or all of it. There's nothing left to invest. This leads to the second critical concept: financial literacy. Financial literacy is understanding how money works. It's not just about making money, it's about keeping it, protecting it, and making it grow. Most people are never taught this. Schools teach you how to read, write, and do math, but they don't teach you how to manage money or build wealth. Kiyosaki identifies 4 key areas of financial literacy: accounting, investing, understanding markets, and the law. If you don't understand these areas, you're at a massive disadvantage. Accounting teaches you how to read financial statements, income statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements. If you can't read these, you can't evaluate whether something is truly an asset or liability. Investing is about putting your money to work. It's not just about stocks and bonds. It's about understanding different investment vehicles and how to evaluate them. Understanding markets means knowing how supply and demand work, how to identify opportunities, and how to time your moves. And understanding the law means knowing how to use legal structures, like corporations and trusts, to protect your wealth and minimize taxes. Most wealthy people have studied these areas deeply. Most poor people haven't. That's a huge part of why the wealth gap exists. Now, let's talk about the third concept: the importance of business ownership and passive income. Kiyosaki makes a crucial distinction between earned income and passive income. Earned income is what you get from working, your salary, your hourly wage. Passive income is what you get from your assets, rental income, dividend payments, business profits. Here's the problem with earned income. It's limited. You can only work so many hours. There's a ceiling on how much you can earn. And when you stop working, the income stops. Passive income, on the other hand, is unlimited. You can have multiple income streams. And ideally, your passive income eventually exceeds your expenses, and you achieve financial independence. Rich people focus on building passive income. They start businesses, invest in real estate, build investment portfolios. They're not trying to earn more from their job. They're trying to create income that doesn't depend on their time. Kiyosaki emphasizes that you don't need to be a business genius to do this. You don't need to start a massive corporation. You can start small. A side business, a rental property, dividend-paying stocks, these are all ways to build passive income. The fourth concept is about mindset and taking action. Kiyosaki argues that most people don't become wealthy not because they lack opportunity or intelligence, but because they lack courage and discipline. They're afraid to take risks. They're afraid to fail. They stick with the safe path. Get a good job, work hard, save money, hope for the best. But that safe path doesn't lead to wealth. It leads to financial mediocrity. Rich Dad taught Kiyosaki that you need to be willing to take calculated risks. You need to be willing to fail and learn from failure. You need to be willing to do things that make you uncomfortable. This doesn't mean being reckless. It means being smart about risk. It means educating yourself before you invest. It means starting small and learning as you go. Kiyosaki also emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with smart people. Rich Dad didn't try to do everything himself. He hired accountants, lawyers, real estate agents, and financial advisors. He surrounded himself with people smarter than him in specific areas. This is a game changer. Most people try to do everything themselves or rely on one advisor. Rich people build a team of experts. Now, let's talk about how this all comes together in practical terms. The Rich Dad philosophy can be summarized in a few key principles. First, focus on building assets, not accumulating liabilities. Second, develop financial literacy in accounting, investing, markets, and law. Third, create multiple streams of passive income. Fourth, take calculated risks and learn from failure. Fifth, build a team of smart advisors. If you follow these principles, you're on the path to wealth. It won't happen overnight, but over time, your assets will grow, your passive income will increase, and eventually you'll reach financial independence. One of the most powerful concepts in the book is the idea of paying yourself first. Most people earn money and pay everyone else first, the government through taxes, their employer if they have debt, their creditors, their landlord. By the time everyone else is paid, there's nothing left. Rich people reverse this. They pay themselves first. They set aside money for investments before they pay their other expenses. This might mean 10 or 20% of their income goes directly to building assets. The rest goes to living expenses and taxes. This requires discipline. It requires saying no to some expenses. But it's the difference between becoming wealthy and staying poor. Kiyosaki also addresses the role of taxes. Most people see taxes as something they have to pay. Rich people see taxes as something they can minimize through legal strategies. By understanding tax law and using legal structures like corporations, they can significantly reduce their tax burden. Again, this requires financial literacy. You need to understand how taxes work and what legal strategies are available to you. Many people don't, which costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Another critical point is about job security versus financial security. Most people chase job security. They want a stable job with good benefits. But Kiyosaki argues that job security is an illusion. Companies lay off employees. Industries change. Your skills become obsolete. Real security comes from financial independence. When you have enough passive income to cover your expenses, you're truly secure. You don't depend on any employer. You're free. This is why building assets and passive income is so important. It's the path to real security. Now, I want to address some criticisms of this book. Some people argue that Kiyosaki oversimplifies wealth building. Some say his real estate strategies don't work in all markets. Some question whether his personal story is entirely accurate. These are fair points. The book is somewhat simplified. Real wealth building is more complex. And not every strategy works in every situation. But the core principles are sound. Assets do generate income. Liabilities do cost money. Financial literacy is crucial. Passive income is important. And mindset matters. Even if you don't follow Kiyosaki's specific strategies, understanding these principles will improve your financial life. Let me give you the key takeaways from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. First, understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Focus on building assets that generate income. Second, develop financial literacy. Learn about accounting, investing, markets, and tax law. Third, create multiple streams of passive income. Don't rely on a single job. Fourth, take calculated risks. Be willing to fail and learn. Fifth, build a team of smart advisors. Surround yourself with people who know more than you in specific areas. Sixth, pay yourself first. Invest in assets before you spend on luxuries. Seventh, think long-term. Wealth building is a marathon, not a sprint. Eighth, focus on financial independence, not job security. These principles have transformed millions of lives. They're not revolutionary. They're not new. But they're powerful and they work. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is more than just a book about money. It's a mindset shift. It's about seeing the world differently and understanding how wealth is actually built. I highly recommend reading the full book. It's packed with stories, examples, and practical advice that we couldn't cover in just 10 minutes. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? What's your biggest takeaway? Or what's your biggest challenge in building wealth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment and love hearing from our community. If you found this book snapshot valuable, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps us reach more people who are serious about improving their financial lives. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. We release new book summaries every week, covering the most important books in finance, business, and personal development. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next book snapshot. Remember, the richest people in the world look for and build networks. Everyone else looks for jobs. Start building your network today.